Yeah. So yes, as a practitioner, I suppose our inspirations always play a role in determining what we do with and as I think literature students, most of us have planned to be writers at some point in our life. So congratulations, you have done it to some extent, which will help us move on to the other side of the divide, as it were, the critical, scholarly, academic side. You are a practitioner. You have done what we have all wanted to do at some point or the other. Whereas Ankit has the job of, not has the job of looking at it from a very critical point of view, as he has done before for Thorgan and he does for a living right now. So I'll ask something the same question. How did your engagement with speculative fiction start out? Like it could be something as basic as choosing your topic or something like that. Like it could be something as basic as choosing your what's the story,
Yeah,
origin story.
thanks, Masha. Before I begin, I'd like to congratulate uh, all of you at third day for completing this first
Start
anniversary.
out.
I've been
Like it could
following
be
the
something
journey
as
of
basic as choosing
magazine
your
through
topic or something like that.
really good thing. Like I really enjoy the fact and I really appreciate the fact that you guys deal with a wide range of material. So congratulations. Thank you for having me. Uh, it's a very tricky question for me because I was not somebody who read a lot in school, but obviously my reading, like all of us from our generation, sparked off, I think, with the Harry Potter series. But when I was reading that in school, I was not aware that this fantasy. It's just another book that I was reading and enjoying. But it's probably in college while dealing with all of these, while studying literature in a critical mode, that I started realizing what genres are and different genres. But even in college, I was not somebody who read a lot of creative fiction. That was actually one of the things that I struggle with even as a young researcher. That I'm not somebody who read a lot of speculative fiction or even science fiction, which is my primary area of concern, right from childhood. It's only after leaving college that I started reading it very seriously during a year of break from academic when I was working. And it is then that I started realizing that and I think precisely because it was not something that we studied in a lot of detail in college, in university, that I realized that this is actually something that's really interesting and I want to look at it and see where I can go with it. So that's primarily how it worked out for me. The fiction of Vandana thing I should mention here because she was the writer with whom I started reading Indian science fiction, and my initial work was also on her. So she provided the path into this world. So yeah, that's like the first how I did that.
Yeah, so what I sort of noticed from both of your testimonies was that, I mean, both of you started your journey, your sort of engagement with literature, as it were, not just speculative fiction with Harry Potter, as you both did, as that, and it's fantasy. And then Ochita wrote something which is sort of magical realism for Thursday. Ankit is working on science fiction. His essay for us was on sci-fi. So many genres under speculative fiction, right? So many. It's almost like an umbrella term covering everything from alternative history to dystopian fiction, everything. Which we will also see when we come to our book recommendations, like towards the end of this podcast, the sheer deal. But on that note, I would like to ask both of you, how would you define it? It's a very basic question. How would you define speculative fiction, given its sheer range, given the eclectic nature of all the texts and genres that is covered, or do you think that defining it is kind of an exercise in futility for the very same reason?
Uh, I think that like defining it is definitely not a futile exercise. For me, like speculative fiction would encompass any fiction that has some element of the magic or supernatural, or in the case of like science fiction, a technology that doesn't exist in reality. So something that has elements of things which don't exist per se in reality, like with any element of imagination.
Right. Uh, and okay.
Yeah. So, am I audible?
Yeah.
Is my voice clear? Yeah.
Mm.
So, the definition that I agree with completely that it is not a futile exercise. And obviously, I would not say that it is a futile exercise to rectify something or critically analyze something. But I mean, yeah, I do agree. It is not futile exercise. And speculative fiction does include, it is an umbrella term, at least the way that it is being used, it has been used over the last decade or so. It is an umbrella term that takes all of these genres into account. The most enduring definition of speculative fiction that I have come across till now is actually one that Vandana Singh assigned in a speculative manifesto, where she calls speculative fiction an exercise in thought experiment. This, I believe, is quite accurate, but I personally also question this understanding of speculative fiction because um, it instinctively feels correct, but I also feel what is literature if it is not thought experiment? Like literature itself is also a way, any kind of art that you create is also a way to engage in thought experiment. Anything that you create or does not exist is in that sense an experiment. Yeah, so that is one thing. But so I agree with it, but I also am not totally convinced. And of late, what I have begun to think is that it is probably better to think of, or maybe more useful. It has been more useful for me to think of speculative fiction as something uh, as a kind of literary activity that defines itself and has to define itself against a literary phenomenon that is very recent in origin, which is realist fiction. So often when people talk about speculative fiction as going back into history, and all forms of writing or literature uh, have been speculative in nature. I think right now in this moment, speculative fiction can be most usefully understood as something that is trying to undo or work against what realist fiction has done in its dominance through almost, yeah, over a century, 50 years. That is my understanding of fiction.
So, while preparing the questions for this podcast, actually, which Ankit's point sort of reminds me of this, and to add this as sort of like a rejoinder. I read Anil Menon's definition of it. He has a really short, sort of almost autobiographical, not autobiographical. He has this note on what is speculative fiction on his website. So there we said that speculative fiction is something like you talked about the binary between realist fiction and speculative fiction. So realist fiction is something in which you don't take the context, you take the context for granted. You know that you're familiar with the rules of the context because you belong to that particular context. Right. So that's you know the rules of the games to be the same as the reality you belong in. Whereas in speculative fiction, it's always the context which is key. Like the rules of the game are not like that is the great reveal of the thing, not the drama that plays out in the foreground as it were. The great revelation, as it were, is like what happens in the background, the context. It's subtly different. Could be the future, could be in a different planet. Like he gives the example of raining. Like when in realist fiction, if you say it rains, you sort of assume that it's water falling from the sky. But in a speculative fiction, you never know. It might be a magical planet. It might be a dystopian future where it's acid rain and things are melting. It could be on Jupiter where it rains diamonds. This could be anything. So it's the rule of the context that are being manipulated. So I thought it was a really interesting thing.
I can just add one more thing, like you said about. It also reminds me of how language is used in speculative fiction. I don't remember which writer talked about it, but it was a very interesting thing that I read long back. That if you use the sentence, he turned on his left side, it means something very different in a realist context. But if you're looking at it from a science fiction perspective, it could mean two things. It could mean that you turn on your left side, or as as a as a machine, you turn on the left side of your
Oh,
body.
right.
Are you not
Language
watching?
also plays a very, yeah, that's what it reminded me. Great
একটু
reminded.
বল ওদেরকে যে দাঁড়াতে একটু বল
Both of you told
কথা বল।
about what you think
ফোন
in
কর
speculative fiction, and you summed it up really nicely. And Ankit, in your very thoughtful essay on sci-fi, you also talk a little bit about this binary that is there in literary circles between literary fiction, so-called literary fiction, and genre fiction. And